So I'm going to get to the scripture in a minute, but if you want to go ahead and we're still going to be in Acts 4 and 5. But I want to start by talking to you. Have you ever looked at something that you thought was real and found out it wasn't? Now, we live in the age of AI, so this probably happens more and more, right? And I have to tell you, when that whole thing first started, I felt like I was pretty good at it, because I didn't think to put them up. I'll just tell you this real quick. John, our resident live stream producer, IT guy, took family photos for our family last fall. We have a beautiful red maple tree, and we got some really good photos. But in one of the first photos, it was like everybody was looking. It was all pretty good, except Ellie, my older daughter, was standing just far enough away. It kind of looked like she didn't really look like she was part of the family. Like we were all clumped, and then there's like 2 feet, and Ellie's over here. So my wife says, "No problem. I'll drop it into AI, and we'll have AI edit the photo." And I wish I had thought to put it up, because what AI did to that photo, all of our faces changed. Like we were different people. It moved Ellie, but it wasn't Ellie anymore. And then my wife types another prompt, says, "We'll try this again." And she gave it some instructions. And next thing you know, what it did that time was then it duplicated Ellie, except the second Ellie had no legs and her eyes were not lined up. And it's just like, it was really obvious that it was fake. It's like, there's no way we can use this. But as the technology has progressed, there's a few things I've seen posted, and it's like, okay, until somebody said, I actually thought that was like a real photograph. I have a friend that travels to Africa regularly to do ministry and missions, and I know he goes and does safaris and does things when he's there, and he posted this picture of him, with his arm around a lion's head. And I have to tell you, I had to look twice. It looked real. Now, it looked dangerous, but I know this guy, and he's just crazy enough that maybe, can you relate? Things can look real and not really be real. So that's the first slide I threw up, is just asking this question: is it really real? Is it really real? We all know the saying, "Don't judge a book by its cover." But don't we do that quite a bit? Do we maybe even do that with church? Are we looking for, the best programming, the slickest facilities? I don't know. There's all different kinds of things, but I want to, as we're talking about vision this month, I want to begin to talk to you about, is it really real? And we updated our website a while back, and this is the whole talk today. And we processed some different language, and we landed on this phrase that lives on the homepage of our website. It just says, "Real people, real Jesus." Because that communicates what we're trying to do. We're trying to be real people, real, authentic people. So we're not trying to pretend we have it all put together. We're not trying to pretend like we're fully arrived and perfected. At the same time, we're saying, but Jesus is real. Just like we talked about a minute ago, that if Jesus is really, really real, and he's in my life, and I have relationship with him in a way that's real, I can actually experience transformation. And so I can remain authentically me, but I don't have to remain the way I was. Jesus can transform me more and more, day by day, by the power of his Spirit, to look more and more like Jesus. And so I can be real. And the reason I'm saying this is because there's a way to do this backwards, where some in the church say, well, I'm going to get all the right looks. I'm going to do the behaviors, and I'm going to check the box so that it looks like, but on the inside, they're missing life. And what we're saying is, we're actually going to be less concerned about what it looks like from the outside. We're not looking to be the most polished and the most programmed, and I abhor competition in the kingdom. But if we were trying to compete with churches, we don't have the resources to that. But I don't really care because that's not what I want to do, right? I'd rather be real and then let Jesus transform us. Real people, real Jesus. From a distance, something that looks real might work. Because the other way I thought about doing this is like there's some pictures, it's like from far off, it looks real. And then the closer you get, you realize, okay, that's not the real deal. I've seen this with, this is not my area, but like designer handbags, right? So, like, you see the knockoff from the guy selling it out of his truck. Well, from far off, it might look like the real thing. And then you get up close and you start inspecting the stitching and looking inside. You're like, yeah, okay, this is not quite it. Right. How about the way we portray ourselves online? Our life might look insta perfect because we've curated all the best moments, right? To put forth a picture of our life that it might have some truth to it, but it's not really real. And the danger for us as a church, especially one like ours that is experiencing new life and baptisms and all the good things that we're experiencing, the way God meets with us in worship, the danger is we can start to look like something and miss actually becoming it. And that's what I want to focus us on this morning is we don't need to look like something without actually embodying it. And so we're going to see here in a minute in Acts 4 and 5, we're going to read a couple of verses and then I'm just going to kind of highlight a couple of stories that follow. Because these two stories are side by side, and one shows us a man who was real, who was authentic, operated with honesty and integrity. And the next story, it looked real, but it turns out it wasn't really real. And it's going to show us what kind of church I think Jesus is actually already building here in our midst. So if you've got Acts 4, we're going to read 32 to 35, and then I'm going to, like I said, just kind of give you the highlights of what follows that. Acts 4:32, all the believers were united in heart and mind. Well, we could just stop there. That's a pretty good picture that we haven't arrived at yet. We could work on that. And they felt that what they owned was not their own, so they shared everything they had. Again, we talked last week about that. Just natural generosity, not forced. It's so important you understand this is not arm twisting and manipulation and people feeling bad and giving with gritted teeth. It's free to give and no judgment, right? Said the apostles testified powerfully to the resurrection of the Lord Jesus, and God's great blessing was upon them all. There was no needy people among them, because those who owned land or houses would sell them and bring the money to the apostles to give to those in need. Now, we could really focus on that because we love to talk about compassion and serving, right? But I just thought, that's a reality for the church at that time. They banded together and the need was able to be met. Did you know God has the resources to meet every need? And he's looking for people that will cooperate with him to help see that happen because he likes to work through us and with us in partnership. All right? So we see here, it said all the believers were in one heart and mind. I love that picture. It's a picture of unity. Now, when we say unity, we're not saying conformity. See, unity is about unifying around a shared mission. That's why we try to keep sharpening our language so that we have something we can unify about. It doesn't mean we have to agree on every little nuance and detail because we're all different people. But we can unify around what is clear, what is plain, what God is saying. And that's the picture we see here. We see a picture of unity, of generosity, of shared life lived in community, and of needs being met. And if you dig into the context and the history of this, it's really clear that it wasn't forced. It was love overflowing. And that's the first thing that I want to draw out of this story is that love, real love, always overflows. You see, if you think about it, if you're I could have done this illustration, but it's kind of messy. If I have a glass and a pitcher of water, I think you can picture this pretty easy. And I start pouring water into the glass, at what point is it full? Well, some might say, well, an inch down because I don't want to spill it. And some of you that are riskier, I say, right up to the edge. In God, full is when it gets to the rim and it starts spilling over, and I just keep pouring. And I just keep pouring, and it actually never stops. See, that's what fullness in God's kingdom is it's full to overflowing and continuing to flow. It's not a get full and okay, all right, my cup's full, now I'm good. I hope you get some. No, it's full to overflowing. And so as I experience and receive the love of God, I shouldn't be able to contain it all. There should be so much that it actually fills me up and it leaks out. And I can actually partner with God to express his love to other people in every situation that I walk into. And that's what we see here. People wanted to give, and those that were able did. Then we meet Barnabas. This is the next little scripture. We're not going to read this section, but Barnabas is a character, and he's in the church, and he goes and he sells a field that he owns, and he brings the money to the apostles, and he lays it down quietly. There was no spotlight. There was no image management, right? Like he wasn't, I got to get, make a reel for my Insta. No, he just does it because it was a real response to a real Jesus out of a real love that he was experiencing in his heart. That's the picture. And so for church, for us, what does that mean? Real people. Well, for us particularly, it means we don't just attend. Church is not a thing we attend. It's a people we belong to. We belong to each other in Jesus. It means we don't just show up, but we show up for each other. When there's a need, we help each other out. When one is down, someone brings encouragement, right? Now, I'm not saying we do this perfectly, but that's the picture. That's the goal, is that we show up for each other almost as if we were family. And that's part of the picture. And I always have to give that caveat. God's picture of healthy family. So if your experience of family's not been healthy, I understand that. Most of ours aren't. But healthy, genuine family in God's picture. That's what we're going for. And then it also means we don't just believe the things that we believe, but it actually compels us to live them out. Real people don't perform, they live. So we're not putting on a show. We're not putting on a skin. Put my next slide up. I think I have this out of order. Yeah, I did that one. What's the next one? Oh, well, yeah, we know this. Okay, just leave that up for now. So then if you go on into Acts chapter 5, you see this story about Ananias and Sapphira. And they do something similar to Barnabas on the surface. But underneath there's quite a difference. Because they give, they go and sell, and they give, but when they bring their offering to the apostles, they misrepresent what it is. They claim that it's all that they received for what they sold. And the issue, I want to be clear about this, the issue was not that they held back. The issue was not the amount they gave. It's that they didn't operate with integrity. They misrepresented, which is like, you can't get away with that with God, for one. He sees your heart. He knows. And again, if we're talking about love overflowing and unforced generosity, there's no reason, right? So I just want to give you a picture. I'm not saying to you, everyone here needs to give until you have nothing left. Unless God has specifically given you that instruction, don't do that, right? But we can be real, meaning we can be honest about what we do. And they didn't. They wanted to look like people who were all in, but they weren't actually all in. They had held back. And at one point, Peter says to them, you have not just lied to us, like as people, but you've lied to God. And I don't know about you, but that's not where I want to live. Right? Because he already knows. You can't get away with it. For church, this is where it gets personal. Real people doesn't mean perfect people. There's no requirement that before you come through the doors back there, you get all your ducks in a row. Some of you have heard this before, but my wife was given a word one time because both of us, like we take the Gallup Strength Finders thing, like strategy is in our blood. Both of us, we have that in similar. We like to plan. We like things ordered and organized, and that can be a strength. But we were struggling with a decision at one point, and this lady comes up and tells Brittany, and God does this sometimes, he shows you pictures to communicate to people. So this lady named Dee, wonderful, wonderful lady of God, comes up to my wife and says, Brittany, I see this picture, and it's all these rubber duckies lined up on the side of the bathtub. And Brittany's like, all right, this sounds good because I like my ducks in a row, right? And Dee goes on to say, and in the picture, I see you come into the room and you just shove them all over the side and they all go in the water and just get all mixed up in the suds. And Brittany's like, no, no, I don't want to do that. And I can't explain exactly how that was meaningful without telling the whole story, but it was such a clear answer for what needed to be done. Because many of us have that tendency. We like our ducks to be in a row. And sometimes that's not the way God leads us. It can be. Planning and strategy can be a strength, but if it becomes the thing that we're following instead of the voice of God, then we can get in trouble. So I don't know if there's anybody in the room today that's struggling and you might need to take all those ducks that are in a row and just kind of push them off the edge and just trust God to sort it out. But maybe that's in the room. But real people doesn't mean perfect. It doesn't mean polished. It doesn't mean put together. What it means is honest, whole, real, not pretend. See, we don't have to pretend we're something that we're not, but I am going to say clearly, I am becoming something, right? I'm not staying where I was. I'm not perfect yet, but Jesus is still perfecting me. He's taking me from glory to glory to glory. And that's not something I'm doing, but I'm partnering with him to see that. And I would love to see a church full of imperfect people who are being transformed, who are being changed. And that is a reality. To be here, you don't have to be perfect. We just want you to be real. Be who you are, be where you're at, and let God transform you. All right, so then this last moment, this is in Acts 5, 7-11. Again, we're not going to read it, but this moment is kind of intense, and you can jot that down and go back and read it later. It's kind of intense, but it's meant to be, because I just have to say, misrepresenting, lying to God, that's not just a minor mistake. And so when Peter begins, kind of taking him to task about it, this was about protecting something that God was doing in the church. He was making it clear this church will be real. Because you can understand as a pastor or leader or apostle, he could have said, well, I better not say anything because they might not give next time. If I take them to task on this, then, right? He didn't do that. He said protecting the integrity of the body was actually more important. Excuse me, let me grab a drink here. Oh, really? Yeah. It's all right. No, they're not. They spill coffee on the expensive Bible that their wife bought them. It's gonna be all right. Yeah, totally. So this is what I think Peter was saying. This church, the church that Jesus was building, is going to be real. It's not going to be built on an image. It's not going to be built on performance or pretending. And here's the result. If you go back and read this, it says after that interaction with Ananias and Sapphira, it says great fear seized the whole church. Now, that feels kind of intense. And I just want to be clear. We're not talking about like they were scared of the boogeyman kind of fear, right? They weren't like checking the claw. It's not that kind of thing. We're talking about like the holiness of the Lord was present. There was like an awe and a wonderment. I don't know if wonderment is a word, but it is in my book. There was an awe and a wonderment of the Lord in that moment, a reverence, an awareness. God is here and he's real. And he sees your heart. And he's not judging you if there's something there that needs to be dealt with, but he is here to say he has the power to change it. All right, well, I didn't plan to go here, but I do what he says. If you're here this morning, now I'm trying to handle this carefully. If you're here this morning and there are things in your life that are not visible to other people, but you know are not, they're causing problems between you and the Lord because there's something that's not right. In my Baptist days, we would call this hidden sin. Like, because it's not visible to everybody, but you're aware of it. I want to just say to you as clearly as I can, you have a tender, loving Father who wants to set you free from that. And you can come to him and we can pray for you and you can share as little or as much as you want, but God can deal with that and help you walk in freedom out of that. It doesn't have to remain hidden. See, my prayer for you, and I'll be honest, I sometimes end up on my knees or on my face, like when I pray for you. I want you to be free. I want you to walk around without anything holding you back. I want that for you. And Jesus has the ability to do that because he's real and he sees your heart. All right. So that's extra. That's not in the notes. But if that is you, like we would love to pray for you and we'll keep things in confidence because we're not trying to embarrass anybody or air anybody's dirty laundry, but I do want you free. I want you whole. I want you healthy. All right. So let's bring this together. What does this mean for us as a church? As we've been talking about vision, we've been experiencing some things that, are life-giving and we're expecting more. As we grow, as more people come through the doors, as momentum builds, the greatest danger is not what happens out there. The danger is that we stop being real here. We start thinking we're something because the crowd got a little bigger. Lord, save us from that. Keep us close to you. Keep us close to your heart. Keep us real. So as we've gone through this series over the last 4 weeks, we've talked about being all in together in community. We've talked about being all in for the community out there serving, being real people. We talked last week about being bold. God's Spirit enables us to be bold, to take risks. And so this is who we're becoming. That's what this whole vision thing has been about. Real people in a real community, following a real Jesus, living laid down lives of surrender, And so I want to just bring this up one more time. Where might you be tempted in your life to look and instead of actually being real, lean into performance or lean into secrecy where something maybe should be brought into the light? Where are you holding something back from God? Where are you avoiding honesty? I tell my kids, it's hard, but not telling the whole truth is the same thing as telling a lie. We need to be honest. And I know, friends, I know it can be painful. Some of the things that we're carrying that we need free from, that we need to deal with, it can be painful to deal with it. I totally get that. But that's why we need community. It's why we need community, so that when the great healer by the Holy Spirit peels back the layer and begins the healing process, I have people around me who love me and who care and who aren't going to judge me, and I can go through that healing transformation process. And I know sometimes it's going to hurt. It might be embarrassing. There's all kinds of things. But on the other side, you're going to be more healed, you're going to be more free, and you're going to be more like Jesus. We're not building a church that just looks alive. I think I have a slide for this. It says, we're not building a church that just looks alive. Do you have that one, bud? I want everybody to read this together with me. Do you have that one, Arthur? There we go. Nope, go back one. Yeah, there we go. We're not building a church that just looks alive. We're becoming a church of real people encountering a real Jesus and living changed lives because of it. All right? Let's read it again. We're not building a church that just looks alive. We're becoming a church of real people encountering a real Jesus and living changed lives because of it. That's what we're doing. And the reason is, I think that's what God's doing. Like, that's what he's leading us in. And we can trust him.